What's up, NFL fans? So it's kind of crazy that week one's already concluded. There were a lot of good games. It was a very fun weekend of watching. I mean, my Giants didn't do so well, but there were other fun games to watch. There's a lot to go over. There's a lot of week two matchups that I'm interested in, so there's going to be a lot of good stuff in this video. Hope you guys enjoy. If you do, let me know in the comments. As always, I will put the timestamps of the particular games in the description, so if you're interested in one game, go ahead and look for it. So I hope you guys enjoy it, and let's get into the games. One more announcement before I start. So the plan originally was to do the reaction video and the predictions in the same video. That's not going to work. This took 50 minutes just based off reactions. There's no way I'm going to make it more than that. So the plan from here on out is to do reactions from the previous week on Monday night, which I'm doing now, obviously. And then the predictions for the next week will be on Wednesday night. So I'm still doing the Giants film review videos on Tuesday night, and I'll try to do the prediction videos on Wednesday night. And it's hard to do it all in one night. I mean, I still have somewhat of a life. I still have to do a lot of schoolwork and stuff like that. So hopefully you guys understand. Sorry if you wanted it to be in one video, but you gotta wait till Wednesday. I apologize. So hopefully you guys watch that one as well. And now back into the video. So here's my record from last week. It's not that good. I'm not proud of it, but I need to hold myself accountable in these videos. I can't just make shitty predictions and just forget that it happened. So I went 10-5-1 this week. I should have projected a tie. That would have been a good idea. But anyway, 10-5-1. The surprising ones to me, of course, were the Raiders beating the Broncos. I mean, it was like an even spread, but I thought the Broncos would win based off the AB fiasco, even though now he's on the Patriots. At the time I made the prediction, he was still on the Raiders, so I mean, I didn't know how that was going to work out. The Colts, I wish they would, they went to overtime, so I was very close there, but for some reason I just thought the Colts would win that game. They were close, but it is what it is. The Jets blew a 16-0 lead. The Browns looked horrible, and the Falcons looked horrible, so there's no excuse for that one. But anyway, 10-5-1. I got to be better next week. I will do better, and hopefully you guys enjoy this video. First game was obviously the Packers at the Bears, Thursday nighter. Wasn't the most exciting game, and some people had some negative reviews about it, but honestly, I was just personally excited for football to be back. I wouldn't care if it was a 3-0 game. I still would have watched the whole thing. I really don't care. I was just happy to have football back in my life finally and have some meaningful games, not this preseason nonsense we've seen for the past month. So anyway, it was a 10-3 Packers win. Obviously, they go 1-0. Bears go 0-1. Adrian Amos, I had, last video I talked about revenge of the safeties, how HaHa Clinton Dix and Adrian Amos are facing off against their former teams. Well, what do you know? Adrian Amos had a game-winning interception in the end zone on Mitchell Trubisky, who looked god-awful. I mean, Mitchell Trubisky, I talked about it last video, how I was like, yeah, I'm not too in on Mitchell Trubisky this year. I shouldn't be saying this because he's only 25 years old, but I just don't think he's that good. And boy, did he prove me right. Now, there are 15 other games to prove me wrong, but I just, I was not a fan of the guy. I don't think he's that good. And it looked like he took a step back from last year to this year. So, I don't know. I don't know if it's the Packers defense being that good and that improved, but he just did not look good at all, obviously, if you watch that game. Mike Davis against David Montgomery. I thought it was going to be Tariq Cohen against David Montgomery, but now it's Mike Davis. So Mike Davis came over from Seattle, had a, average year for them, I guess, was more of a backup behind Chris Carson and Rashad Penny. So now the Bears bring him in, and he's kind of stealing touches from David Montgomery, the rookie who looked really good in his limited carries. I think he had I don't know how many carries it was. It wasn't that many, though. You could probably count it on one hand. It wasn't really that much. But he deserves more carries, but Mike Davis is going to be in the way of that, so we'll see how that plays out in the future. The Bears D, still really good. They sacked Rodgers 5 or 6 times. They were just overwhelming at certain points, especially the first few possessions. The Packers in the first quarter got nothing done. Then Rodgers had that long pass to Valdez-Scantling, and it kind of opened things up, and then Jimmy Graham had the touchdown, but really, outside of that, the Bears defense really did not allow much at all. The Packers got it going at some points later in the game, but for the most part, their defense was amazing. I don't think that says anything bad about the Packers offense. I think they'll be fine. The Packers D, keep it up. They were really good. I've been talking about it all offseason, how their offseason moves have been great. I like what they did in the draft the last couple of years, bringing young defensive talent. Their offseason moves with Zadarius Smith and Preston Smith and bringing Adrian Amos, they added players on this defense. This is the best Packers defense, arguably, since they won the Super Bowl back in 2012. I think it was 2011, 2010 maybe. But it's their best defense in a long time. So I think they'll be good this year. I really do. I like the Packers. Aaron Rodgers looked pretty good. I don't think he was fantastic by any means, but there were some moments where you saw the old Aaron Rodgers, and I think as he plays defenses that aren't ridiculously good, you'll see more and more of him getting back into it, so I'm pretty optimistic about that. Even Jimmy Graham, who I called washed up, had a touchdown, so I don't expect much from Jimmy Graham, but he had himself a nice game, and if he can become a useful red zone weapon and a consistent one, that's definitely great for Aaron Rodgers and the Packers offense. So I'm excited for them. We'll see what they do the rest of the year, but the Packers, they go 1-0, Bears go 0-1. On to the Sunday games, and we have the Titans at the Browns. The Browns were favored in this game, but they went on to lose by 30 points, which a lot of people did not expect. I'm sure some people picked the Titans because they weren't buying into what the Browns did this offseason, but to lose by 30 at home, not a good look for the Browns. So the Browns, their first drive, they looked really good. Freddie Kitchens was drawing up some nice plays. Baker Mayfield looked really good. Had a near interception on the first drive, but outside of that, he looked flawless. But after that, the Browns offense, they really struggled. Too many penalties for Cleveland. They had 18 penalties resulting in 182 yards. That had to be the most in the NFL so far. I don't think I've seen any more than that. That's a lot of penalties. Cameron Wake, 2.5 sacks. Of course, the veteran. He's got to be like 35 years old now. Coming over from the Dolphins, had himself a nice game. The Titans secondary had a really nice game. A few picks on Baker Mayfield. Malcolm Butler had a pick 6 late in the game. Brett Kern had some great punts. I don't talk about the punters a lot. He was the reason that they got a safety later. Brett Kern basically punted the ball to the 1-yard line. Baker Mayfield got safety like a couple plays later, so I got to give the punter some credit there. He did a nice job. The Titans offense, they surprised me. I did not expect much. I obviously was not too high on Marcus Mariota. He had himself a nice game. Delaney Walker came back from injury, had a couple of touchdowns and a nice game as well. Derrick Henry had that 75-yard screen pass where he just ran in a straight line and scored a touchdown, but hey, it counts. A.J. Brown had a 100-yard game in his debut, so that's cool as well. It was 15-13 late in the third, and the immediate answer by the Titans. So what happened was the Browns scored. I forget who scored for the Browns exactly, but they made it a 2-point game. First play on the next drive, the Titans throw that screen pass, the misdirection screen to Derrick Henry. Perfect play. The entire Browns defense fell for it. Had a 75-yard touchdown right after. Big answer for them. Mayfield, 3 interceptions in the fourth, sacked 5 times. Just not a good look for this Browns offensive line. Baker Mayfield, you felt like he was just forcing it way too much at the end. He was not being conservative or being smart at all, and that's what happened. So a big statement game by Tennessee. I was saying this before the week started. I did pick the Browns to win, I'll admit that, but I did also say that the Titans could have a really good defense and prove a big statement here and show the NFL like, hey, we're for real. A lot of people, myself included, are counting the Titans out. I don't think they're really going to compete for a playoff spot, but maybe they will. I don't know. Marcus Mariota, maybe he's good this year. Maybe this is finally the year where he stays healthy and puts it together. We'll see. They have a very nice defense, and we'll see if they can keep it up the rest of the year. This wasn't the most exciting game on the Sunday slate. A 59-10 win for the Ravens over the Dolphins on the road. I expected the Ravens to win by more than the 7-point spread they were given, but to win by this many points is pretty surprising. If my math's correct, that's 49 points. I did not see that coming. I don't think anyone saw that coming. This is the most points in Ravens history, their franchise history. That's really cool. Marquise Hollywood Brown, his first NFL game, 147 yards, 2 touchdowns. I think I heard a stat today that he played 12 snaps. He had 12 snaps and finished with 147 yards and 2 touchdowns. I don't know how you do that. That's not sustainable, but it's very impressive nonetheless. Lamar Jackson, 17 of 20, 324 yards and 5 touchdowns. For a guy who doesn't know how to throw the ball, very impressive performance for Lamar Jackson. I hope he keeps proving the haters wrong. Earl Thomas had his first interception in a Ravens uniform, did it in his first game, did not take too long. Ryan Fitzpatrick and Josh Rosen did not look any good. I think Rosen had 5 throws, even threw an interception. Fitzpatrick had an interception as well, so those two did not look good. Lamar had all day to throw. There was no pass rush whatsoever. I don't know if it's the defensive line being really bad or the Ravens' offensive line being really good, probably a bit of both. Jakeem Grant dropped a punt when it was 28-3, I believe, in his own territory, so that set up a 35-3 lead for the Ravens. And then when they were at 35-3, John Harbaugh runs a fake punt, which I love. I think that's awesome. Some people might call it Bush League or something. I think that's cool. It's the NFL. It's a professional league. I don't care what the score is. I mean, you want to beat your opponent as bad as you could. So going for a fake punt, they got it and made the lead 42-3 after that. Mark Ingram in his first game as a Raven, 14 carries, 107 yards, 2 touchdowns. Mark Andrews, who I don't want to say it's just me because I mean a lot of people have said it. He could be like this year's George Kittle, and he definitely has the talent to do so. Started off very nicely, 8 catches, 108 yards, and 1 touchdown. That's great. Ravens with 643 total offensive yards. Very impressive, and let's see if they can build off of this. I don't expect them to go out and score 60 points next week, but I mean, it's a great start. So, I mean, really nowhere else to go from here but down, but still, I mean, it was a great performance. For the Dolphins, I mean, it can't get much worse. There's some players that want to get traded, I heard already, so it's going to be a rough season there. We'll see what happens when they play the Patriots week 2. I'll get into that next video, but might be a rough year for the Dolphins this year. Atlanta at Minnesota. I got this game completely wrong. I thought the Falcons were going to win this game outright. The Vikings were favored by 4 points. Now I see why. It should have been more than 4 points looking back on it. But Falcons did not look good in this game. Their offensive line did not look good. Obviously, the Vikings' defensive line is amazing. Their whole front seven, their whole defense for that matter, is very good. But the Falcons' offensive line, pretty big issue. I don't know how they're going to be the whole season, but this week and even in the preseason, they did not look good. Dalvin Cook breakout. It's possible this year. If this man stays healthy and they give him the ball this much, and I know their offensive coordinator wants to run the ball a lot. I mean, Kirk Cousins only threw the ball 10 times, so it shows you that how much Kevin Stefanski wants to run the ball this year. That's why they made the change at offensive coordinator. Dalvin Cook had 21 carries, 111 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Even his backup, Alexander Mattison, in his first NFL game had like 50-something yards. I forget how many carries, but they all had a good game at the running back position for the Vikings, so that's good. The Vikings had 4 sacks and a blocked punt, so they did everything right defensively and special teams. Matt Ryan had a terrible red zone interception late in the third quarter. I don't know what the score was at that point, but it was a very bad throw. I think Matt Ryan's a good quarterback, but that guy will make some of the worst red zone decisions you'll ever see. And he just literally lobbed the ball in the back of the end zone. I think he tried to throw it out the back of the end zone, didn't throw it far enough, and there was a defender for the Vikings right there ready to intercept it. So just a bad decision by him and an even worse throw. What's the ceiling for the Falcons defense? I mean, last year we blamed it on injuries and all that kind of stuff, which is fair. I mean, a lot of their really good defenders were out for the season due to injury, but like, what's the excuse now? I mean, like, the Vikings just beat you on the ground very badly, and I don't know what their ceiling is as a defense. I mean, we'll see what they do next week. I don't know off the top of my head who the Falcons play next week, but I'll go over it in the next video. But their defense and their offensive line is very concerning. A good thing for Vikings fans, like Xavier Rhodes, who had a pretty down year last year, looked really good in this game. Julio Jones did not do much this game. He did have a touchdown late in the game, but for the most part, Julio was very quiet. So, that was a good game for him, and it's good to see for Vikings fans. So, Vikings fans, they have to be excited. The Vikings seem like the new Seahawks. They want to run the ball more than they throw, and if they're up in games, I'm sure they'll do that. And the Falcons, I mean, they need to find their identity. It's plain and simple. I hope they get on track week 2. On to the Los Angeles Rams at the Carolina Panthers. I was excited for this game. I'm sure most people were. It was a good game. So Christian McCaffrey, still absolutely ridiculous, had 19 carries, 128 yards, 2 touchdowns. That was just on the ground. Receiving, 10 receptions and 81 yards. I mean, the guy had a freaking crazy game, but what else did you expect from that guy? Todd Gurley had 14 carries. Malcolm Brown had 11. Todd Gurley, I believe, had 97 or 96 yards. He had a good game, but for some reason wasn't used on the goal line. It was Malcolm Brown as their goal line back. I don't know if that's going to continue as the season goes on. I'd be pretty surprised. I'm sure a lot of fantasy football owners will be pissed off if you drafted Todd Gurley that high and he's not even the goal line back. So we'll see how it plays out, but it's pretty interesting to see that. Jared Goff looked really, really bad in this game. I mean, I feel like Jared Goff was just, he was just going for it too much. Like there were situations where he had the underneath routes. There was a rollout play with like 5 minutes left in the game. And instead of throwing it to Cooper Kupp, who was wide open 10 yards down the field, he went for Robert Woods 20 yards down the field and was this close to throwing an interception. Like, he was just, being way too greedy and stuff like that. Jared Goff, I mean, it's fixable, but it was kind of concerning for how kind of how reckless he was with the ball. But I think they'll fix that. I mean, Sean McVay will definitely coach him out of that stuff. The new kicker for the Panthers missed a 53-yard field goal. That's a tough field goal, but Graham Gano, their longtime kickers on IR this year. I forget what the injury was, but he was placed on IR in late August. So maybe they have some kicking issues this year. I don't know. He made another long field goal, so maybe he's fine. I don't even know who this guy is, Joey Sly. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but we'll see if there's an issue there. There are teams with worse kicking situations than the Panthers, so they should be all right. Dante Fowler had 2 sacks for the Rams today. I believe he just signed a big contract last year or this year. I forget when it was, but he's earning that paycheck now. Aaron Donald was doubled all game. I believe Aaron Donald had 1 tackle the whole game. They were not allowing him to do anything. I guess that was part of the game plan, and that opened up an opportunity for a guy like Dante Fowler to have 2 sacks today. Cam Newton's arm looked pretty good post-surgery. I mean, it kind of looked the same, nothing different. So, I mean, they're saying Cam has a new throwing motion. I don't really notice the difference looking at it on TV, but I mean, who knows? DJ Moore, 7 for 76, lost a fumble though, so DJ Moore, a possible breakout candidate as a year 2 wide receiver, so we'll see if he can do that. 7 for 76 is not that bad, but you can't fumble the ball. Come on. The Panthers had a big block punt in the beginning of the fourth quarter. I believe it was 30-20 at that point. The Rams were kicking in their own or punting in their own territory. They blocked it. They scored a touchdown with the fullback. That obviously was the final score after that because Corey Littleton for the Rams had a big interception on Cam Newton in the fourth quarter, and that pretty much prevailed them to win the game. So it was a good one. It was kind of weird with the whole Todd Gurley not playing goal line back situation, but outside of that, I did expect the Rams to win this game, but it was a good one. So, I mean, the Rams start 1-0, Panthers 0-1. The Panthers do get the Bucs on Thursday Night Football, I know that, so they'll probably go 1-1 and hopefully go 500 after that. This was also a fun game. We had the Chiefs at the Jaguars. Some bad news, obviously, in the first quarter, I believe it was. Nick Foles went down with a shoulder injury. He's on IR, eligible to return in Week 10, so I wish him a speedy recovery. The 6th-round rookie quarterback, Gardner Minshew, came in. He looked impressive. I don't know his stats off the top of my head, but he did look good. He looked competent, so I don't think the Jaguars are completely screwed now. They traded for Joshua Dobbs, I believe, the Steelers' 3rd-string quarterback or 2nd-string. I don't know who's hired him or Mason Rudolph. I don't know, but a Steelers quarterback is traded to the Jaguars for some depth reasons, obviously. Tyreek Hill could be out for a few weeks, they're calling it, with a shoulder injury. Sammy Watkins had the game of his life, I believe a career-high 198 yards, 9 receptions, 3 touchdowns. Patrick Mahomes, I mean, if there was any doubt about him, taking a step back, I'm not so sure about that, man. He's so good. 25 for 33, 378 yards, 3 touchdowns. The no-look pass was the one downside to his game, so there was a play in the corner of the end zone where he had the ball, tried to no-look it to Travis Kelce and threw the ball over his head, and Kelce had no one near him, so that was kind of just very unnecessary on Mahomes' part, and I think he tweeted about it I owe Travis Kelce lunch or something like that, trying to make it a joke, but if that was a playoff game and he did that, not good, but it doesn't matter because they scored 40 points and won. DJ Chark, the 2nd-year wide receiver, 4 catches, 164 yards, and a touchdown. Former Chief Chris Conley, 6 catches, 97 yards, and a touchdown. So those guys had some really nice games. Potential breakout season for DJ Chark. Believe he came out of LSU a couple years ago. So even, D.D. Westbrook had a touchdown as well, but didn't have a great yardage game. Miles Jack was ejected from this game in the second quarter for, I believe, throwing a punch at somebody. I forget who it was, but just stupid. I mean, you got to be more disciplined than that. You can't have that happen. You just got a big contract, and you can't be punching guys and getting ejected in the second quarter. I mean, come on. LaShawn McCoy had 10 carries. Damian Williams had 13 carries. It's going to be interesting what, Andy Reid does with those two guys. LaShawn McCoy looked a lot better. I believe Damian Williams was averaging 1.5 yards per carry, and LaShawn McCoy had 10 carries for 70-something yards or 80 yards maybe. He looked a lot better, so we'll see how that progresses throughout the season. No sacks for Saxonville. No one really got to Patrick Mahomes. I mean, he was hit a few times, but no one actually got a sack on him. And as I said before, the Jaguars can compete with Gardner Minshew. I don't think he's that bad. He really impressed me for being just thrown into a Week 1 matchup where he probably wasn't expecting to play. So we'll see how he does. I mean, I'm interested. I'm definitely going to be tuning into that. But, I don't think the Jaguars are going to make the playoffs this year. I said it before, but especially now with the Foles injury, I definitely don't see it. So we'll see how their season goes the rest of the way, and we'll see how Gardner Minshew performs as their quarterback. The Buffalo Bills at the New York Jets. I feel so bad for the Jets fans. So the Jets had a 16-0 lead late in the third quarter. Everything was looking great. Jamison Crowder was playing well. Le'Veon Bell was playing well. All their new guys. C.J. Mosley was playing out of his mind on defense. So then C.J. Mosley goes down with a groin injury in the third quarter, I believe it was. The Jets were up 16-0 when he went down. The Bills answered with 17 unanswered points in the fourth quarter. I believe they scored 3 late in the third quarter, so it wasn't all fourth quarter, but a very late comeback. Josh Allen had 4 turnovers in this game. Can't have it, but still found a way to come back in this game. The Jets have a kicking problem. They had a missed PAT, and obviously if they made that PAT, it would have been 17-17 and a chance to go to overtime. I don't even know who the Jets kicker is. I forget the guy's name, but I'm not so sure he's going to last the whole season. I'll just leave it at that. So Le'Veon Bell, Jamison Crowder looked really good in their debuts. I believe Jamison Crowder had 14 catches, which is insane, but he did have 14 catches. Le'Veon Bell didn't have a great game on the ground, but he had a receiving touchdown, did a lot of good work in the receiving game. The Bills' defense is still really good. Don't be fooled by the 16 points. The Jets scored, I think, 8 of those points on 2 of them were on safety, and the other touchdown was on a return fumble by C.J. Mosley, I think it was, or some Jets defender had a return touchdown. So not all of that was the Bills' defense. They should still get a lot of credit for this win. Sam Darnold could not get in the rhythm today. He had some nice throws, but just, there was points late in the game where he missed Robbie Anderson on some deep balls that would have won the game. So, he looked a bit, shaky at times, couldn't get into a rhythm, but I'm not concerned. I think he'll be fine as the season goes on. Devin Singletary had 4 carries for 70 yards, and the veteran Frank Gore had 11 carries for 20 yards. I really hope they make the switch and give Singletary more work. He deserves it. I watched a lot of this game, and he looked a lot better than Frank Gore did. I understand the coach wants to go with their veteran back because they trust him more and all that crap, but, Devin Singletary looked a lot better. I hope they give him more work as the season goes on. John Brown had a nice debut for the Bills, had a 7-catch, 123 yards, and 1 touchdown debut, had the game-winning touchdown with about 3 minutes and change left to go up 17-16, so that's nice to see. Josh Allen with the game-winning drive. Josh Allen had a rough game, had a couple of fumbles, had a really bad interception. I think he had 2 interceptions it was, so he looked pretty rough for the first 3 quarters, had some good moments but some bad moments, but he was able to bring them back and win the game, and that's all that matters. So to have a comeback drive when you're down 16-10 on the road in a division game, that's very big. It's rookie or second-year quarterback for a second-year quarterback, a lot of pressure, and he was able to handle it and lead a game-winning drive. So that's cool for Josh Allen. Very unfortunate for the Jets. They thought they had it in the bag. It looked like it was over in the middle of the third quarter. Bills come back and steal that game from them. So can't have it if you're the Jets. I'm sure Jets fans hate Adam Gase even more now, but just give him time. We can't run the guy out of town after 1 week. I know how New York fans are, obviously. They could be ridiculous, but, I think the Jets will be fine. I think they'll win their 7 or 8 games this year. They'll be okay. Don't panic, Jets fans. This was the last of the 1 o'clock games, I believe. The Redskins against the Eagles. It was at Philadelphia. Case Keenum had a nice debut, 30 of 44, 380 yards, 3 touchdowns. Carson Wentz played well, 28 of 39, 313 yards, 3 touchdowns. Deshaun Jackson revenge game, comeback game for the Eagles. First time in an Eagles uniform in, I think, 5 years maybe-ish. Eagles fans know, I don't know, but it's probably around 5 years. Went from the Redskins to the Buccaneers, obviously. He had 8 catches, 154 yards, 2 touchdowns. Rookie Terry McLaurin from Ohio State, I believe, had 5 catches, 125 yards, and a touchdown for the Redskins. That was pretty surprising. Philly's secondary still an issue, still a very big issue. Case Keenum lit them up. Imagine what a better quarterback would do against this secondary. The Eagles secondary, as I said last video, is the one flaw of this team. Outside of that, I love this team, but if their secondary is no good in a passing league, then it's going to be a rough season possibly. I still think they'll win a lot of games because their offense is that good, but once they get in the playoffs, they can't have this kind of play from their secondary, so we'll see if they can fix that as the season goes on. The Redskins' offensive line held up. It wasn't that much of much of the downfall for their loss in this game. Obviously with no Trent Williams and Eric Flowers starting, there was probably going to be some issues, but it really wasn't that bad. They held up and played good enough to win. Unfortunately, it wasn't the result, but they played well enough. The Redskins, or I just went over that. The Redskins were up 17-0 in the second quarter, and it looked like they were possibly going to steal one in Philly, but the Eagles just, eventually had a nice comeback, and Carson Wentz got his crap together, and the offense started playing well. Deshaun Jackson was hit on the deep ball, and the Eagles kept rolling after that. The minus 10.5 spread, I feel really bad for anyone who bet the Eagles minus 10 or minus 10.5. The Eagles had it. They had it. It was 32-20. The Redskins scored with 8 seconds left on a pass to Trey Quinn, I believe it was. So if you bet the Eagles minus 10, I'm sorry. I mean, that sucks. So hopefully you didn't bet that, but if you did, I apologize. That's very bad. But I did bet on the Falcons, so I suck too, but we're in this together. But I'm very surprised, honestly, with how the Redskins played. I thought it would be more of a blowout. So to lose by 5 points is it's not bad. I mean, Case Keenum definitely earned himself another couple of weeks as the starter. We'll see when Dwayne Haskins gets out there, but it definitely won't be next week unless Case Keenum gets hurt, of course. The Colts at the Chargers, a game that went to overtime. I obviously picked the Colts to win this game. I was very close to having that happen, but unfortunately it fell a bit short. Austin Eckler had 154 total yards, 3 touchdowns. Does not look good for Melvin Gordon. He definitely does not need that for his contract negotiations. As I said before, I'm on board with the Chargers. I wouldn't pay him either. I think just let him hold out. You have good running backs there. Austin Eckler can get the job done in the meantime. Phillip Rivers, 25 for 34, 3 touchdowns, over 300 yards. Did have an interception, but still, the interception was in the red zone, so that's not good. But, I mean, other than that, he had a nice game. Jacoby Brissett did about what I expected him to do. 21 of 27, 190 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. As I said, he's conservative. He won't lose you a game, but he probably won't win you a game either. He almost won them the game yesterday, but it was close. Phillip Rivers was sacked 4 times. That's too many. No Russell Okung at left tackle, and that's a big loss for them. So I did mention that last week. Their starting left tackle is out, so let's see how much that affects their line. And 4 sacks for Rivers is too much. Malik Hooker, the star safety for the Colts, had a one-handed interception in the red zone. That was the Phillip Rivers interception. Obviously, it was a great play. He just reached out with his hand and stuck to his glove. It was an awesome catch, so go watch that if you haven't seen it yet. Jacoby Brissett comeback drive. They were down 8 points with just a couple minutes left. Brissett had a nice comeback, made the game go to overtime. Unfortunately, they lost it there because of Austin Eckler, but Marlon Mack, on the other hand, had 25 carries, 174 yards, and a touchdown. I believe that's a career high for him. He had his longest run of his career in this game as well, so that's good for him. He had a quiet first half, but when he had that big run in the second half, it inflated his stats. T.Y. Hilton had 8 catches, 87 yards, 2 touchdowns. Good to see from their number 1 receiver, because their number 2 receiver now, Devin Funchess, went out with a broken collarbone, so he'll be out for a long time, possibly the season, so that sucks. T.Y. Hilton needs to step up. Guys like Deion Kane need to step up now. Their tight ends need to step up. And the Colts are still good without Andrew Luck. So this is a game that if they had Luck, they might have won it. But the Colts aren't bad without Andrew Luck. Some people expected the Colts to suck without him, but that's not the case. I mean, they're a good team. I mean, they're not as good without Luck, but they're still competitive. They're going to compete every week. They might not win the 10, 11, 12 games if Luck was here. I expect them to go 8-8, and that's probably what will happen, or it'll be somewhere around there. Maybe they sneak into the playoffs. I don't know, but I think they're good enough to be competitive. They're not just going to lay down and be like, oh, we lost our quarterback, so let's give up on the season. That's not going to happen at all. They're going to be competitive. They're going to play teams like this very tough, and I'm surprised at how close it was. Well, I'm not surprised. I did have the Colts winning this game, but it is surprising to see them play a good Chargers team on the road and almost beat them. So it's a good thing for Colts fans, and brighter days should be ahead. On to my New York Football Giants at the Dallas Cowboys. I kind of want to skip this game. I did talk about it a lot yesterday for my Giants fans, but for the sake of these videos, I'll talk about it a little bit. So, can Kellen Moore unleash Dak? I mean, the new offensive coordinator for the Cowboys, Kellen Moore, comes in. The Cowboys were always running like an old-fashioned type offense, but now it looks a lot better. There's a lot of motion, a lot of play-action stuff, a lot of RPO stuff, and it looked really good. So maybe Kellen Moore can unleash Dak Prescott and make him a better quarterback. He went 25 for 32, 405 yards, 4 touchdowns. You do have to take into account that they played the Giants defense, which isn't the best defense, but still, it was impressive nonetheless. Zeke and Pollard had 13 carries each, so it was kind of going to be interesting of how they distribute the carries. I expect Zeke to have 80 to 90% of the work from here on out, but due to the fact that Zeke came in late because of the contract holdout, it was a split. Michael Gallup had 7 catches, 158 yards, a possible year 2 breakout candidate for this team. He's a very talented guy, and he had some nice moments last year, but if he could put it all together this year, that's big for the Cowboys, especially with Amari Cooper and his injury concerns right now with his foot problems and stuff like that. They need Michael Gallup to step up. Evan Engram, the Giants tight end, had 11 catches, 116 yards, and a touchdown. A year 3 tight end possible breakout. I expect it to happen. He just needs to stay healthy, and I think it will happen. Only 11 carries for Saquon Barkley, and I went into great length about this yesterday. I was pissed off about it. I mean, how do you only give Saquon Barkley, the most talented running back in football, in my opinion, 11 carries? He was averaging 10.9 yards per carry, and the Giants did not want to give him the ball. Made no sense to me. Dallas's offensive line is still very dominant, so I mean, watch out, NFL. It was really good. Now that could be because the Giants don't have a great, any great pass rushers, but still, their offensive line looks really good from my eyes. The Giants' offensive line is improved. It's not as bad as it has been in the years past, so that's good for Giants fans. And the Giants' young defense does look vulnerable right now, so we'll see. The Giants play the Bills next week. I don't think it'll be as bad. I don't expect the Bills to put up 35 points against the Giants, but I'm not so positive if they're going to win that game or not, so we'll see what they do. I'm not sure who the Cowboys play next week, but I actually know they play someone easy. Who is it? I don't know. I'll get into it next video, but I think the Cowboys have a pretty easy schedule to start the season, so we'll get into that next video. But yeah, Giants 0-1, Cowboys 1-0 to start the season. On to the Niners at the Buccaneers, a 31-17 victory. There's not a lot to say about this game. Jameis Winston looked awful. I mean, I've been in Jameis Winston's corner for a while, and I expected him to be better this year, but this was not a good showing. A lot of terrible decisions, especially the last interception. That was one of the worst interceptions I've ever seen. I think it was supposed to be a screen play. He completely overshot his running back, and a 49ers defender was right there and just walked the ball into the end zone. It was just not a good look for him. Vernon Hargreaves, the former top 10 pick, I believe he was, or something around there. He was a high pick. Had a pick 6 in this game. The Buccaneers need a big year from him. Richard Sherman, the 49ers cornerback, had a pick 6. He did not have an interception last year, but opens the year with a pick 6. I mean, against Jameis Winston, I don't know if it counts, but still, I mean, whatever. Pick 6 for him. Jimmy Garoppolo, 18 of 27, 166 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Not the best game, but not the worst. He didn't lose them the game like the opposing quarterback, so that's good news. The Niners had 3 sacks on Jameis Winston. I mean, that was kind of the thing I was saying last video, how the Buccaneers have a very questionable offensive line, and I'm a big fan of the Niners defensive line. I believe Nick Bosa had his first career sack in this game, so good for him. I think DeForest Buckner got a sack in this game as well. Not sure if D Ford did. I don't remember hearing about that, but I'm sure he made some impact on that game. But yeah, I mean, it was disappointing. I expected more out of the Buccaneers. Mike Evans did nothing. Chris Godwin did have a touchdown. O.J. Howard, their tight end, had a very rough game. So, I mean, these guys need to bounce back. As I said, they play the Panthers on Thursday night. I'll get into more of that in the next video. We'll see if they can bounce back on Thursday. And lastly, Ronald Jones looked good. I mean, that's very surprising. I mean, you hear reports about Ronald Jones during the offseason saying this guy looks like he could be a cut candidate and stuff like that. He was their lead running back. He had more carries than Peyton Barber, so 13 for 75. He looked good. I mean, there was one play in particular I remember when it was a 3rd and 25, they threw like a screen pass to him, and he ran down the left sideline, bounced off a couple of tacklers, and picked up the first down. He looked good on some occasions, so I think Ronald Jones, I mean, I did like him in college. Unfortunately, it has not happened for him yet in the NFL. Had a very rough season last year in his limited running back moments, but still, he definitely has potential, and hopefully he has a good year too and can kind of bounce back. A lot of people said bad things about him, so we'll see if Ronald Jones can have put together a nice year too for himself. The Lions at the Arizona Cardinals, and this game was actually pretty fun. I mean, it wasn't expected because these teams struggled a lot last year, but it was a fun game. Not a lot of defense being played in this one, but it was fun. Some sloppy plays as well. Went to overtime, obviously. Great NFL debut for TJ Hawkinson, I believe was a top 10 pick. He went like 8 or 9 or something like that. Great tight end, 6 catches, 131 yards, and a touchdown. It seemed like no one was covering him, so it made it easier for him, but nonetheless, it's an impressive debut, especially for a rookie tight end. Danny Amendola, Lions debut, 7 catches, 104 yards, and a touchdown. Had that nice catch down the right sideline, had a nice in-cut, and had a long touchdown, so I remember that play. Matt Stafford looked good. I talked about it all offseason, how last year we should kind of throw out the window because he had the fractured back. He comes back healthy now, 27 of 45, 385, and 3 touchdowns. Very impressive. Kyler Murray started very slow but ended very strong, so that's definitely a positive thing for Kyler Murray going into week 2. Believe they play the Ravens, a pretty tough defense, so we'll see how he does in that game. Kyler's interception was the definition of a rookie mistake, and if you guys didn't see it, I believe it was the first quarter. He was on his own 10-yard line, scrambled out to the right, tried to make something happen that wasn't there, threw a deep ball down the right sideline, and the defender just jumped in front of it, made the interception. So now he knows next time not to do it, so it was definitely a rookie mistake. Taylor Decker, the left tackle for the Lions, had a very rough game with Chandler Jones, even Terrell Suggs in there. Chandler Jones had a strip sack, got right by Taylor Decker, made a couple nice plays on him, so he had a rough game at left tackle. Larry Fitzgerald still looks amazing. He had over 100 yards. I believe he had a touchdown in there as well. He was diving all over the field, making great plays. I mean, he's still 34, 35 years old, still doing it. It's awesome to see. Future Hall of Famer. Not many better than him in his position. The Cardinals were down 24-6 entering the fourth quarter, came all the way back. New Lions offensive coordinator Darrell Bevell cost them the game. So I forget the exact situation, but it was like a 3rd and 5. A couple minutes left in the game, right before the 2-minute warning. The Cardinals had no timeouts left. The Cardinals ran a screenplay, and it worked to perfection. They had the first down. It looked like the game was over after that, but the refs blew the whistle and say the Lions called timeout before the play. So the Lions, okay, they don't get the first down. They have to redo the play now. They run the play after the timeout. They don't get it. Lions get the ball back, or the Cardinals get the ball back, tie the game. They go to overtime. So Darrell Bevell, the new offensive coordinator, basically cost them the game. That sucks. Not a good look for your first game. Tremaine Brock had a dropped interception that could have won the game for the Cardinals at the very end of the game. So Matt Stafford with about 8 seconds left, had the ball, threw it to the right sideline. Tremaine Brock made a great play, jumped in front of the ball, had it in his chest, and if he caught the ball, he could have gone out of bounds at the Lions' 30-yard line and potentially set up the Cardinals for a game-winning field goal. Not sure if Zane Gonzalez would have made it, but still, they would have had a shot at a 40-something yard field goal to win the game, but Tremaine Brock dropped the ball. The game ends in a tie. No one likes to see ties. I was kind of disappointed. I wanted someone to win this game. I picked the Lions. The Lions definitely should have won this game, being up 24-6 in the fourth quarter, but it is what it is. So it was nice to see Kyler Murray, someone I'm very high on, have a nice second half, or a nice fourth quarter more specifically. And hopefully he builds on that against the Ravens next week, so we'll see what happens there. The Cincinnati Bengals at the Seattle Seahawks, a very close game, was not expected, honestly, by a lot of people. Many people thought the Seahawks would blow them out. I think the spread in this game was -10, if I remember. It was pretty wide, whatever it was, but the Bengals only lost by 1, very surprising. Andy Dalton looked really good in this game. I believe he had the most passing yards in the NFL for week 1, unless one of the Monday night guys did it, so I'm not sure yet if that happened. So he 418 yards, 2 touchdowns for Dalton. John Ross, the former first round pick, 7 catches, 158 yards, 2 touchdowns for him. You can tell that Zach Taylor was trying to get him involved in the offense, and it worked. Cincinnati defensive end Sam Hubbard had 2 sacks. If you get 2 sacks, I'll give you a shout out. I don't really know who Chris Hubbard is. I know he went to Ohio State, was a 3rd round pick a couple years ago, but I haven't really kept up with him. But if you get 2 or more sacks, I'm definitely going to say your name. So that's a good game for you. DK Metcalf, the rookie receiver, 4 catches, 89 yards, had a big catch in there. Seattle defensive end Quentin Jefferson, 2 sacks, had 3 in all of 2018, so already almost has as many as he did last year. Jadeveon Clowney, his first sack as a Seahawk happened in this game, so that's good to see. The Bengals, 3 turnovers and a missed field goal, so they obviously could have won this game. They probably should have won this game. They beat themselves in many aspects. 9 total sacks in this game, some weak offensive lines on both sides. Seattle's offensive line sucks every year. year. The Bengals lost 2 starters before the season even started, so it's going to be a rough going for them offensively on the line. Zach Taylor had a good first game of play calling, some interesting stuff from him. I liked what I saw. He made Andy Dalton look really good, and I really don't think Andy Dalton's all that good. I mean, he's all right, though. I mean, Andy Dalton, when he's healthy, is good, but he gets injured too much and sometimes makes some really bad decisions. But this game looked really good. Seattle safety Tedrick Thompson had a really bad play before the half on one of those John Ross touchdowns. There was only 10 seconds left in the second quarter, and the safety Thompson had a great angle on the ball and looked like he was going to have an interception, but just completely whiffed. The ball went over his head right into John Ross's hands for a long touchdown. So that almost lost him the game. So you can't have that at safety for the Seahawks. They kind of have a rough secondary nowadays. The Legion of Boom is no more. They have a bunch of young guys in the secondary now, so you can't have that stuff as the season goes on. The Seahawks do come away 1-0. Bengals, unfortunately, 0-1. I do believe it'll be a rough year for Cincinnati overall, but this was a good showing. They go into Seattle, lose by 1 point. They should have won, as I said. They missed the field goal. They had 3 turnovers. They probably should have won this game, so it's definitely a good showing for Bengals and some optimism for their fans. On to Sunday Night Football, and if you missed this game, you really didn't miss much, but honestly, I'll watch any NFL game. I love it, so I really don't care. I also love Al Michaels. If Al Michaels was commentating a middle school football game, I could probably sit through it as well. I'm a big Al Michaels guy. Collinsworth's all right, but definitely an Al Michaels guy. So the notes for this game, obviously a 33-3 victory, a lot of threes for the New England Patriots. I mean, I don't remember the last time the Steelers put up this many points. I mean, that's pretty bad. I know it's not a good look because you just let Antonio Brown go via trade. Now he's on the team they just played. Le'Veon Bell, you let him go to the Jets. So, I mean, it made sense. These things had to happen, but it's just not a good look for the Steelers right now. Tom Brady, he still got it. 42 years old, 341 yards, 3 touchdowns. Philip Dorsett, who I do feel bad for because I feel like once Antonio Brown is in the equation, Philip Dorsett's not going to see the field that much. He had 4 catches, 95 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Josh Gordon had 3 catches, 73 yards, and a touchdown. Good to see coming off his, drug issue and all that kind of stuff. To see him get reinstated and have a nice week 1. Had a really nice touchdown play where he broke a couple of tackles and got in on a simple drag route that he took for 25 yards, but he is a freak of nature, so I'm not surprised. Dante Moncrief, yikes. I mean, this is coming from a guy who started Dante Moncrief in multiple fantasy football leagues. I am a clown for that. I mean, look, I had the right philosophy. The guy had 10 targets, but Moncrief just forgot how to catch the ball. He had 10 targets, believe he had 3 receptions and 7 yards. So it's a rare occasion where the guy had more targets than total yards. I don't remember the last time I've seen that, but it happened. Vance McDonald had 2 receptions. You can't have that. I said in my prediction video for the entire season, if the Steelers are going to be successful, Moncrief and McDonald have to step up, or James Washington. Those guys have to step up. It did not happen. James Washington had 1 nice long catch today, but outside of that, he didn't do much either. Moncrief and McDonald have to play better than this, or else the Steelers are going to be in trouble on offense. James Conner had 10 carries, 21 yards. Not much he can do this game. He was not given many running lanes. Is Mike Tomlin in trouble? I understand he just signed the contract extension through 2021. Obviously, a coach can be fired at any time. Is he in trouble? I mean, I personally don't think so. It always seems like the Steelers go back to him, and the Steelers don't like bringing in new head coaches. I mean, the Steelers have had, 3 head coaches since the 1970s? I mean, it's, they don't go with many head coaches on that team. Do the Pats need Antonio Brown? I would say no. They don't need him, but it's just an embarrassment of riches at this point. They seem like they have a good receiving core. I didn't even list Julian Edelman, who had how many catches did he have? 8 catches or something. He had 60, 70 yards. He had a good game, Julian Edelman. He was always there when they needed him, so look, I mean, it's no guarantee that Edelman stays healthy and that Josh Gordon stays out of trouble or that Antonio Brown stays out of trouble, but if these guys all play all season, it's going to be a ridiculous offense. There's rumors that Rob Gronkowski might come back at some point, and I would not be shocked if it happened. I mean, Gronk is a lot skinnier now. He does not look to be in tight end shape right now, but I'm sure he can, make up for that in a couple of months. But as I said, I wouldn't be shocked if he came back, but I'm not banking on it, but we'll see what happens as the season goes on. But the Patriots get the Dolphins next week. I don't know who the Steelers play, so the Patriots are bound to be 2-0. Don't know who the Steelers play right now. We'll go over that next video, but man, not a good showing for the Steelers on Sunday Night Football. An early game of the year candidate on the first Monday night game, the Texans at the Saints. A game-winning field goal for Saints kicker Will Lutz, a 58-yarder. It was an awesome game. We'll get into how it ended in a little bit. Deshaun Watson went 20 of 30, 268, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Drew Brees, 32 of 43, 370 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a rare red zone interception by him. Whitney Merciless made a nice play, I believe it was. And Drew Brees does not throw many red zone interceptions, so that's rare to see. Alvin Kamara, 13 rushing yards, 97 rushing yards, or 13 rushes, 97 rushing yards, 7 receptions, 101 receiving yards. He almost had 100 and 100. That would have been cool, but still a great game anyway. Michael Thomas and DeAndre Hopkins had over 100 yards each. They had great games. DeAndre Hopkins had 2 touchdowns. The Texans' offensive line still looked like trash. I mean, they added Laramie Tunsil. He's only been there for like 5 or 6 days, but they still did not look good. The Saints D had 6 sacks in this game, so you can't have that. Deshaun Watson was sacked the most in the NFL last year, I believe, and if he sacks six times a week, he's definitely going to be on top of the leaderboards for being sacked the most once again. So not a good look for their offensive line. Deshaun Watson had a crazy 2-play drive, so I'll try to go over it and get the score right. So it was 27-21 Saints with a minute left. The Texans had to go like the length of the field, basically like 80 yards. It started with a bomb down the left sideline to DeAndre Hopkins, who made a great catch for like 50 or 60 yards. And then the next play, Kenny Stills was hit over the middle for like 30 or 40 yards. Kenny Stills, a former Saint, by the way, playing in his first game with the Texans, so a nice revenge situation for him. The Texans they tied the game off that. It was 27-27. So then the Texans kicker, I always pronounce this guy's name wrong, Kaimi Fairbairn, I think it is, missed the extra point, but of course the refs, who I guess have something with the Saints, they don't like the Saints, I guess, they called a questionable running into the kicker call, so Fairbairn got a second shot at it. He made the extra point on the second try, so now they're up 28-27. The Saints had 1 timeout left to go like 40 yards to get in the field goal range, and I forget how much time was left, probably like 25, 30 seconds around there. So they had 1 timeout, had to go 30 yards. Of course, Drew Brees made it happen. The Texans played a very questionable defense on the last throw by Drew Brees. The safeties were playing way back in the end zone, and the Saints were definitely all in for going for a field goal. They played some very light coverage, and Drew Brees hit a quick curl route for like 7 or 8 yards, and they had the ball on like the 38, 39-yard line. Will Lutz came in, hit the 58-yarder game winner. It was an awesome game. If you missed that one, make sure you go back and watch the highlights. You don't have to watch the whole thing, but watch the end at least. It was an awesome game. Possible game of the year candidate. Definitely was the game of the week so far, unless this Oakland game that I'm watching right now has a crazy end. But it's 21-6 Oakland right now, which is surprising. But we'll see if Joe Flacco can have a comeback. So I'll get into that game next. The Saints go 1-0. The Texans with a disappointing loss, but I'm still very high on the Texans. I think they'll be fine. I believe the Texans get the Gardner Minshew-led Jaguars next week, so they should be 1-1 unless something bad happens. Hopefully Deshaun Watson plays. He seemed fine, but the back injury is kind of scary, so we'll see how that progresses throughout the week. And hopefully the Texans go 1-1 next week. The late Monday night game, it is a 16-24 win for the Raiders at home. Good for them. They had a rough last month, I would say, or especially last 2 weeks in the news with Antonio Brown making them look terrible. I mean, Antonio Brown looked terrible, but the Raiders didn't look so good themselves. But they release him. He's not their problem anymore. Antonio Brown loses a lot of money, and now the Raiders have a clean slate. They play home Monday night against the Broncos. They beat them by 8. So the Raiders' offensive line looked really good. The Raiders' offensive line has some interesting names on it. Of course, Colton Miller, a former first-round pick. I believe this is year number 2 for him. They have a great center, Rodney Hudson. They do have Richie Incognito, who did not play tonight. He suspended the first 2 games. They do have the expensive right tackle, Trent Brown. So, I mean, they do have some interesting names on an offensive line, and they could be good this year, and definitely showed in Josh Jacobs' stats and Derek Carr's stats. So Josh Jacobs, the rookie running back, 23 carries, 85 yards, 2 touchdowns. Of course, there's concern with rookie running backs, like how much work do they get? We saw it with David Montgomery and some other rookie backs like Devin Singletary. Sometimes rookie running backs, especially in their first games, don't get high workloads. Well, Josh Jacobs got 23 carries, so that's not an issue there. Derek Carr looked good behind the offensive line, 22 of 26, 259, 1 touchdown, so it's good to see that. Philip Lindsay against Royce Freeman. So I want to look at their stats real quick because I don't have it written down. I believe Royce Freeman had the better game, and I've been all over Royce Freeman. So Royce Freeman, 10 carries, 56 yards. His long was 26. Philip Lindsay, 11 for 43. His long was 9 yards. I'm sure Lindsay did better in the receiving game. Yes, he did. 4 for 23. But anyway, a better running back performance for Royce Freeman. I'm more of a Royce Freeman guy than a Philip Lindsay guy. That's for fantasy football reasons, though. I'm also all over Josh Jacobs. In my fantasy football video, I predicted Josh Jacobs to be a running back 1 this year, so hopefully that comes true. Tyrell Williams, their new number 1 after Antonio Brown left, 6 for 105 and a touchdown today. That's good news for them. Tyrell Williams, a former number 1 receiver when Keenan Allen was out for the season a couple years ago. He filled in, had 1,000 yards that year, looked pretty good. I mean, Tyrell Williams is not a proven number 1, but we'll see this year. He will definitely have a lot of targets this year, and we'll see what he does with them. As I said, if you have 2 sacks, you're going to be mentioned. Benson Mayowa, who I believe was with the Cowboys for a while, had 2 sacks tonight, so shout out to him. Joe Flacco looked average. They did have a drop touchdown. Deshaun Hamilton dropped an easy touchdown in the beginning of the 4th quarter, so that definitely goes against Joe Flacco. But Joe Flacco had some pretty off throws in this game, so he was up and down for this one. Just didn't look good at night. Didn't look great, I should say. Courtland Sutton, a possible year 2 breakout receiver for the Broncos. 7 catches, 120 yards this game. He looked good. Unfortunately, did not find the end zone. He almost did, but did not find the end zone. So that concludes it. So usually I was planning on doing a reaction and prediction in the same video. That would take too long, obviously, so I'll do the predictions on Wednesday night, hopefully. Hopefully you guys watch that video. I appreciate you guys watching this. I think last video got like 5,000 views, which I was pretty surprised about, so hopefully more of you keep watching this. I hope you guys enjoy it. Let me know in the comments if you do, and I'll probably talk to you guys Wednesday for the Week 2 prediction video.